for Motohop on Air.
Welcome to episode 7. We're recording this on October 5th, 2023.
Should have waited till the 7th. It could have been the 7th.
Episode on the 7th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next time.
Yeah. 1 away from 8.
Oh, man.
Episode 8 is one of those hurdles. If we get to episode 8, what did I say? We're like top 50% of all podcasts
I think
or
that's
something?
what you've told me.
Yeah. Well, then you sent me the thing this week. If we make it to episode 21, that puts us in the top 1% of all podcasts, which is kind of crazy.
Elite.
It just shows you how many podcasts there are.
I think people start them without, number one, structure. I think people are finally getting better. It's more trendy now to kind of have your different segments.
Yeah.
I think it took us took everyone just in general a while to figure that out. I think we had the advantage of starting later. We're a little bit after the curve.
Yeah.
And can have a lot of inspiration and stuff like that. But I think people just get like excited about something and want to talk. And it's like, maybe do a TED Talk instead of a podcast. You know, you only got like 40 minutes.
Yeah. I will say the benefit of starting a podcast after, after the peak of the bell curve, probably. Although I don't know, maybe they'll keep growing in popularity, was the audio equipment was much easier to source and set up than it was last time I looked into all this.
Probably more affordable too.
Yes. Yes. Well, normally we would start with what's in the cup, but you decided to not bring. Yeah, you didn't bring anything fancy. I got two drinks down here.
Well,
what'd you bring?
It's 10:30 at night, and so
right on schedule.
I've consumed the proper amount of caffeine for a day. I even drank some late. I hope you're proud of me in hopes of I drank some after I took a short nap earlier.
What a life.
Hashtag unemployed. So that, the depression gets to you. Sometimes you just got to sleep it off. And I've decided that alcohol is not always the best.
That's fair.
So I replaced it with sugar and had apple dumpling today.
Okay.
Try to space out the luxuries. But so I just brought my 40-ounce Stanley.
Big old white Stanley cup full of water.
I know. I had it on the table and it made like a chunk. I set it down, so it's on the floor.
So if you hear the sound of steel rattling on concrete, that's because she took a drink of water.
Don't be concerned. I'm just hydrating.
I am double fisting over here. I have another one of those blue collar mimosas. I think that was episode 1 or 2. So 50-50 orange juice and Red Bull in one cup. In my Stinger Harley-Davidson cup.
And the thing is like that drink is so weird to me because the flavors don't mesh. It
they totally do. It's so good.
Tastes like orange juice and orange juice and Red Bull. It's not like it's like some new exciting it tastes like fruit punch. No, it literally tastes like orange juice and Red Bull to me. Probably because I don't like Red Bull that much, but
also that.
I don't even consider it a mixed drink. It reminds me of how you always say like dogs smell every element of smell
differentiation.
Differently. Yeah, I'm like, no,
you can differentiate the Red Bull from the orange juice.
Yeah, if I could sort it back out, I would.
And then I also have a little rocks glass here with a little 4 Roses. I forget, it's their blended bourbon. It's very delicious.
It's your new find.
It's your new find.
Yeah, because every time I go into the liquor store, they can tell I'm lost and confused. Because when I drink, it's
and I send her with specific instructions like bourbon.
It's so overwhelming. I get decision fatigue before I step foot in there. And I've bought so many that you're like, that's not what I wanted. And I'm like, I'm a designer.
Well, all drink.
I really just want to buy what comes in the prettiest container. Yeah. Like, there was one with a skeleton last time I was in there, and I don't know that I took a picture, but I thought about it because I'm like...
Like Crystal Skull vodka, or...?
No, it was like an actual tall, 750, a wine bottle size, but shaped like a skeleton, and had the bones painted on it, and it was some sort of whiskey bourbon situation, just not on that same wall that we always buy it from. I'm like, man...
It's probably Canadian or something.
How seasonal. How festive.
That's pretty wild.
I mean, if it wasn't so expensive, it'd be fun to just buy all the cool bottles. But of course, then what do you do with them? Then you just look like an alcoholic.
Only if you display them.
Just hide them away.
But it depends.
I always try to buy.
Bottle, I'll give you a pass on a couple.
I always try to buy things that come in cool containers. More so the less they cost, but it's like a nod to the designer that came up with it. Because the container costs more just being custom in general. So to me, I'm like,
yeah, someone's energy went into that.
Yeah, if I see like a cool die cut, unique shape of like mints or something at the checkout, I'll try to grab them just because I'm like, you know what? I don't really like sit around and chow on some mints, but hopefully that designer, their sales go up because of this container.
Yeah.
And I helped.
Well, what did we do last weekend?
We went to Mapleside.
Oh, we did go to Mapleside.
That was Sunday.
Yep. And I rode the Vulcan.
Yes, you did.
That was good. So for those out there, if you've never used Waze, Waze, it's a pretty good navigation app.
I used it a long time ago before Google bought it.
Yeah.
And I barely used it. I think I've had a grudge against it since the one time I was trying to go somewhere. Maybe it was when we were going to the Outer Banks. And they basically told me that I couldn't get there from where I was.
Yeah, I think you had some weird setting or something.
No, it wasn't a weird setting. It's just
of
when I use it.
Never user error.
Always, no, absolutely not. It's the technology's fault. It's my phone's fault. You know,
Yeah,
I almost threw it against the wall because it's just like, no, you can't get there from here. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, yes, I could.
I forget where. I don't think I just found it poking around. I think someone mentioned it either on a podcast or online somewhere. There's a motorcycle setting in there, though, that's fantastic. So what it did was it took this ride that if I just put in Google, I mean, you guys drove by car and you were just like on the highway, right? My route was only 7 minutes longer. And I got to do curvy back roads that I would have probably never found a few of those roads.
Very cool.
Yeah. So it was a nice ride. Out. Mapleside was fun.
It's like Akron to Brunswick. So it's about 40 minutes.
Yeah, it was like 47 by Google, 55 by Waze-ish.
And we're in the Midwest, so we measure things by time it takes to get there, not distance.
47 minutes and 55 minutes, roughly. So because I rode, I got to then later on hear my sister discuss her anxiety because I passed her a couple times. So she saw me on my motorcycle and she is just anxiety ridden anytime she thinks about me riding a motorcycle.
We'll ultimately know if she listens to this because she's getting called out right now.
Yeah.
And Taylor, I hope your boyfriend buys a motorcycle.
They also had pig races. Those were fun.
It was good, but a little anticlimactic.
So
it was definitely like, they're like 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, you know, because you got to corral the crowds from the corn maze, from the weird little tractor games, from the hay rides, you know, you got to give everyone like these. You got to build it up. And I tell you, he did. And even like the intro to the pigs was like 10 minutes long because you were recording it. So the entire
event, it was 15 minutes was the first announcement. We walked over right away to secure prime standing area at the final turn before the finish line.
This is probably like a 100-foot course.
Maybe. The entirety of the event was 10 minutes. The race was
30 seconds?
Yeah, 45 seconds generously of the 10 minutes.
They really should have let it go. So they let these pigs out after these elongated introductions
that were fantastic.
They were good, but like I kind of zoned out after like the first 7 minutes. I was like, okay, dude, this was funny like 5 minutes ago. And then they even had like some intern or someone corralling them to make sure they went fast enough. I'm like,
yeah,
we paid a lot of money to stand here and watch these pigs.
Well, he was making sure they didn't go backwards.
Obviously, they've not done
We didn't pay specifically to watch the pig race.
No, but the entrance fee is like $17, and it's like, you know what? Let us watch the pigs graze. They should have like put an ear of corn on a string or something, see if they could lead them through it.
It was great though. If I have time, I'll upload the video I took. They did this ESPN parody. It was MSPN, Mapleside Programming Network, I think.
Yeah.
And he did like very over the top like sports announcer intro to it and everything.
He even looked sharp.
Good. Oh, he had like suit and tie and like it was good.
I don't know how much he gets paid, or he's probably like the owner, and they're like, okay, you can pick any job you want. And he's like, I'm going to be the pig announcer. Like, okay, bro.
It was fantastic. I'd go watch it again just for the intro.
I was kind of hoping he'd talk a little faster, like, kind of like a auctioneer type guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Kind of gave me the pig vibes, but I imagine it's hard enough to hold the attention span of children after describing pigs for 7 minutes. So
it was good though. Ride back was good. And then Monday, Tuesday-ish, your car decided to have charging issues.
It actually happened the day, I think it was Tuesday. No, it must have been Monday.
Monday or Tuesday.
Monday, I think it actually did something, and I didn't tell you because I was hoping it was a fluke. Well, you're so stressed already with your job and everything. It's like, you know what? I would have told you eventually, but like I was hoping it was just like a one-off.
Yeah.
It had like the flashing, like your battery's not charging light come on. And I was like, oh, that's weird, but maybe if I ignore it, it will go away.
Yeah. So, did an alternator yesterday.
Well, it only got worse after that. It did it once on Monday, and then Tuesday, I went to take it across town to meet with our accountant, and it just like constantly flickered on and off. And every time it flickered on, it chimed.
Yeah.
And
well, it's not just like a light. It's like a full-blown warning across the dash and everything, and on the entertainment thing screen in the center.
So the same day I found out that I owe the city $1,600. My car
BMW's like, how about another $350, $400 for an alternator?
If you're lucky, yeah.
Yeah.
Luckily you were able to do it, but man, it's probably why I need water today.
Yeah.
No alcohol when you're sad. That's a rule.
It was relatively easy in the realm of alternators.
It took you like less than an hour.
Yeah, which in the grand scheme of working on things, it's pretty good because you're always one bolt away from a 20-minute job becoming a 5-hour, 3-day, whatever job.
And it's always like something bad happens right as the stores are closing, like 8 o'clock.
I think that's why it went quickly, is we started early enough that I had time to go get other parts. So, of course, everything went fine.
And she's happy now.
Yeah. Speaking of BMWs, though.
Another non-sponsored episode.
Yeah. The stop sale has been lifted. Yeah,
so I read those articles that you posted. Very vague. They're all just like updated pre-existing articles. There's no new news on it. They're just like,
I'm going to give a lot of people props. Everyone seems, for the most part, to have updated their article or written a new article, which is something I normally have big issues with whenever a site, newspaper, media outlet in general, makes a big deal about something negative about a company. And then whenever there's a positive end to the story or, a reversal of that, they make little to no mention. My big issue is no mention. Everyone that I looked at updated their articles or wrote a new article.
Does that affect SEO if they update, good or bad?
Well, if they write a new article, it would be a benefit for SEO because it's more content.
Based on the size of the updates, it was about a partial sentence where they're like, oh, it's been lifted. Well, everything's fine.
Updated what BMW gave them, which was not a whole lot. Let me pull this up here. The official statement was BMW Motorrad USA has announced that the engineering division has concluded our testing and evaluation and has determined that the voluntary stop sale measure can be lifted. Dealers may resume the sale of all new and pre-owned BMW motorcycles as of Friday, September 29th, although I didn't see this hit most media outlets until a couple days ago. So they're not going to say what the issue was.
No, I think one of them like lightly mentioned it was emissions related.
Well, they said that during the stop sale.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like, JK, guys. Go ahead. Let's just pretend like none of this ever happened. They were both articles, they were pretty strong to make sure everyone knew it was voluntary by BMW.
Yes. Well, that's the whole goal, right? You as a company want to get out ahead of anything before the federal government becomes involved.
Yeah.
So, since last episode, the BMW R1300 GS has been released to all kinds of interesting opinions across the interwebs. So the X-shaped headlight from the photo leaks last week is confirmed. Cleveland Moto, I think, likened it to a chocolate starfish. If you're unfamiliar with that terminology, that'd be a butthole. And most of BMW's comment section keeps telling them to stop posting pictures of the Suzuki V-Strom.
Why? Is it the butthole offensive to them?
No.
Oh.
The design is that close to the Suzuki V-Strom in their opinion.
Oh.
A lot of people think it has lost its GS vibe. But
maybe it was just what they could get availability-wise.
It's going to sell bikes. People are going to buy it.
I will say, until about 6 weeks ago, I thought there was 15 to 20 different bikes to choose from.
Like across the whole industry? Holy moly.
Yeah, I'm overwhelmed. Needless to say.
That's fantastic.
I need another nap. But I'm just like, every single one thinks they need another one?
Yes.
Oh my God. No wonder you have decision fatigue.
Let's see. Triumph has released the US pricing for their upcoming Speed 400 and Scrambler 400X. Have you looked at these yet?
Yeah, so I was going through the article and looking, you go and you look for the price. I don't know if that's a female thing or whatever, but that's the header that's going on. And it's scroll. Okay, I'm looking. They're like, oh, you save what, $1,000 or $5,000 or something?
What?
Are they cut
No,
off
you're
price?
thinking the zero.
Oh, is that the next
You're
one?
jumping ahead.
Oh, mixing stories.
Triumph, yep.
That's what I get for studying.
The Triumph Speed 400 and Scrambler 400X, they've announced the pricing in the US. The Speed 400 will start at $4,995, so $5 less than $5,000. And the Scrambler 400X will be at $5,595. Those are interesting price points because they almost exactly mirror the Royal Enfield Scram 411 and the Himalayan 411 as well. The Street 400's more road-oriented than either of those. But it's going to put people in an interesting place to decide between a Royal Enfield, which is still in the US kind of a bit of an outside brand.
Underdog?
Yeah. Or now you can get a Triumph, the Speed 400, under $5,000 for a brand new motorcycle.
As far as looks go, are they super similar?
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty close. It's a little bit different. You mean the looks between the Himalayan and the Triumphs?
Yeah, isn't it more dual sporty?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Scrambler X, it is more off-road oriented. You're getting like Barkbuster style handlebar covers, dual sporty tires. The difference between the Scrambler 400X and the Speed 400 is not enormous. Most of it is just kind of small details and difference, although there is a tuning difference between them of some sort, because one would infer that they have the same exact engine in them, but they have different power numbers on the Triumph site. But cool to see new bikes coming in at that kind of under $5,000 price point, and it being from someone other than Royal Enfield.
So probably just under $6,000 after tax, title, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the dealer you're dealing with and your state sales tax and everything, but yeah.
Cheaper than a car. As cars go up, bikes seem cheaper.
Yeah. To the next article.
Spoiler alert, yeah. I read it already.
Yeah. Zero has made most of these price drops were already in place, but they've made them permanent on all of their 22 and 2023 bike models.
Do you think they're starting to panic that there's so many left over? Especially 22. That means these are new bikes that they're trying to sell. I don't want to say get rid of, but
yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily know that it's panic. I think part of it is kind of readjusting to the market. One, you have your base economic supply and demand. Obviously, the supply is higher than the demand currently. You have Livewire releasing the Del Mar, which kind of slots right into Zero's price points.
I wonder what's happened if you like bought one last week.
These were in place last week. They're just announcing that they're permanent now.
I know. That's what I'm saying. If you paid $1,000 more last week.
What I'm saying is the $1,000 off was in place last week.
Oh.
These have been in place, but they were like limited time. Now they're permanent.
Oh. Okay. So no one got scammed. Good for you.
I mean, someone I'm sure was before the discounting, and some people were going to be after, but most of these had been reflected on the website for a while. It's interesting because it brings several of the bikes real close to $10,000. The one that kind of caught my eye was you can get a Zero DSR, the ZF 14.4, $3,000 off, brings it to right around $13,000. That's kind of compelling to me. That's for a 23 model year. It's going to be closer to 15, which is kind of odd, but
this might be a dumb
trying
question.
to move old bikes.
But are they all electric?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, Zero only makes electric motorcycles.
Okay, so that's kind of what I thought, and I thought I saw a stat in here.
Mm-hmm.
What was another article I read, and now I'm going to get them all messed up. What is the range on these?
Depends on the bike.
Oh, okay.
All over the place.
Okay.
Yeah, depends on the bike. You are probably thinking of the next article.
That's why I didn't say anything.
Kawasaki's electrics that we mentioned in the past, they had launched in the UK. They've now officially launched in the US. This is the Kawasaki Ninja E1 and Kawasaki Z E1. They're here. I have mixed emotions on these bikes.
Written by the same author on this article. So I kind of stopped reading this article after it says Kawasaki lists an estimated range of 41 miles in a single charge. I'm like, my goodness, 41 miles, like pay full like motorcycle price for 41 miles. At that point, you could almost get a moped.
Yeah, I don't know that is entirely accurate.
Maybe it's out of context.
This is just one I grabbed. I should have put multiple articles in the notes here for you.
And I would have read them all and got confused.
It was rated closer to 70.
That's what I thought they were.
Testing.
When we talked about it a couple weeks ago, I thought I remember being around like 70 or something. But
it says, I don't know. But they have swappable battery packs that may be on a single battery pack or something. The one thing that is interesting, it gets you into a proper brand in that 7,000-ish price point. The closest bike performance-wise to this that I know of is the Sondors Metacycle. It's in the 5,000-ish range. Sondors is known for electric bicycles.
That would be an interesting conversion for people to go maybe from one of these electric bicycles to, moving up to a motorcycle from the same company.
That's what a lot of them are betting on. Yamaha's made a big push in electric bicycles.
It's kind of a cool idea because that's obviously like a market to upsell to as compared to trying to convert petrol bike riders, like motorcycle riders. Let's convert bicycle riders instead because they have a strong culture following too. Yeah. Like that would be such a seamless transition for them.
Yeah. So before I forget, while we're talking about electric bikes, so last episode I had mentioned that I couldn't believe that no one had come out with a kit to convert a Harley Livewire or a Livewire 1 to an adventure style setup like Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman had on Long Way Up.
Mm-hmm.
And I had someone reach out to me on Instagram.
A fan?
No, not directly. So his name's Ben. His handle on Instagram and his YouTube channel is let's see, Adventures on Zero.
Hi, Ben. Shout out, Ben.
Yep. And hopefully he finds his cameras. He lost cameras recently.
It seems to be like a common trend with these motorcyclists losing cameras.
Who else has lost cameras?
At Mid-Ohio.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, as long as you can give me more than one, I'll go with you there.
I'm not making stuff up.
Yeah. Anyways, so he messaged me. He said his buddy Chris at Livewires sent him a clip from our last episode. He actually did it. So he converted his Livewire 1. It looks real similar to the bikes they rode on Long Way Up. Mm-hmm. Got spoked wheels, some soft luggage on there.
Is that a different, like bottle style? It looks a little bit different. Theirs seem to be more like, I don't remember those. Let me point. Those things, the little crossbars.
Crash bars?
Yeah, do they have those?
Yep.
Oh, I thought
his are a little different style, I think. But
they were
had
on
crash
blue
bars
ones,
as well.
so maybe it just
they had a blue one
me.
and an orange one, and his bike is white. But he's got windshield, taller handlebars, bike sits a little higher. He mentioned somewhere I read what his actual clearance is, but so he did this conversion in his basement. It took him about 9 months. Said he had zero knowledge or experience in mechanics or engineering. Going into the project, just a passion to see it through. Came out pretty cool.
Kudos for sticking to it.
Yeah.
That's a tough learning curve.
The link to his YouTube and his Instagram will be in the show notes. You really should go to his YouTube and watch it. So he was he became the first this bike became the first electric motorcycle to complete the Mid-Atlantic BDR, Backroad Discovery Route. He's got a series that he's been posting videos from this ride. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of weird parallels between his ride and the Long Way Up.
That is ironic.
So they have, on this ride, 2 electric bikes and 1 petrol bike. Exactly like the Long Way Up. The other electric bike is a Zero. A decent amount of their riding is kind of like them finding places to charge, which is to be expected to some extent.
I think the East Coast is a little slow. I bet you in California it's a whole different story.
He found way more DC fast chargers than I was expecting him to find.
I wonder if there's
more than one.
I wonder if there's consistency in the type of gas stations you stop at. You know, is it like...
They weren't all gas stations. He went to like a Chevy dealership.
Oh, that's something I wouldn't have even thought about. Or I bet grocery stores probably have some too.
Yeah, most gas stations in our area don't have electric chargers.
Oh, what a mind twist. Like, man, to like kind of change your entire thought process on how to like recharge. That's a little inconvenient too, because like what if you want snacks and need to pee? Like no one wants to go to a car dealership.
So the one day they stopped for lunch and we're just like, I forget if it was like a church or something. They were just like riding around the building looking for an outlet to plug into just to like level 1 charge them for a bit while they stopped to eat, which was entertaining. The interesting part though is the Zero does not seem to be looking for charges quite the same way he is on his Livewire. And I think part of that is the difference between the Zero being able to level 2 charge, which I'm not entirely sure they don't address it. They stay at campgrounds a few times. At a campground, you should in theory have enough power to run a level 2 charger off of a campsite, like where if you have like RV hookups.
Is that just the type of the cord he carries with him?
So it has more to deal with. So like a level 1 is like a regular 110 outlet, pretty slow to charge. Mm-hmm. Level 2 is still AC, but typically like a 220 circuit, higher amperage. And then level 3 is DC current, so not household AC current. Much higher voltage.
He just needs a cord basically and somewhere to put it. Is there like actual hardware?
It depends on the vehicle as well. So the Livewire does not support level 2 charging. It only supports level 1 and level 3, which is kind of odd because if it doesn't have the fastest charging available, it can only use the slowest charging available.
Yeah.
If you plug into a level 2 charger, you're getting level 1 speed.
Yeah, and it takes a while to charge these bikes, so it kind of sucks to like stop randomly for 3 hours or even an hour to just like sit there and wait for the bike to charge.
Well, on a level 3, yeah, it's pretty fast. He went from like single digit percentages to like 100% in like 45 minutes in the one episode. But level 1 charging's a slow go.
And 45
that's
minutes
what
is
they
still
did
a
in the Long Way
time.
Up.
45 minutes is still
Sure.
like, if you're by yourself, you sit and twiddle your thumbs for 40 minutes.
And you go
You're
find
not-
something to do.
You know what they need?
What?
A Moto Compacto.
Yeah, there you go. That's a hilarious idea. Get a pannier mount for a Moto Compacto, strap it to the side of your electric bike. The problem is you then need to charge that.
Yeah, but at least you only have to charge like one at a time. It's really just for backup. It's like to get you to the gas station down the street.
Yeah. That's a funny idea, especially if you could find a way to charge the Moto Compacto off of the main bike.
Ooh.
Well, that's what you'd kind of have to do because you'd want to make sure it's ready to go every time you stop to charge your main bike, right?
Oh yeah, you charge it before you leave or overnight or something.
Well,
it would be easy.
Let's say you're on a trip.
Your goal is to not actually like deplete it every time you stop. It's just a supplement.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. Interesting though, because so when he finds a DC fast charger, obviously very quick, they're much, the DC fast chargers seem to be fewer and further between. And the funny part was they had to change how they were asking places if they had a DC fast charger or a level 3 charger, because they called one dealership and they're like, oh yeah, we got a level 3. And they're like, really? Awesome. We'll be there. And they show up. There's no level 3. They've got, I think 2 or 3 level 2 chargers.
Ugh.
There's a massive difference in physical size of these. Level 2 charger is like a little box that goes on the wall with a specific plug. Level 3 charger, because it's got to do AC to DC conversion and then massively jump the voltage up typically, is like a big box because there's a transformer in it.
Oh, so is it bigger than a gas pump?
Closer to that. So how they changed their question was they'd call them and go, do you have level 3? And they'd go, yes. And they're like, it's like the size of a refrigerator, right? Or is it a little thing on the wall? Oh. It's a little thing on the wall. That's not a level 3.
It's a fuse box.
Yeah, that's a level 2. But yeah, so link will be in the show notes. Go check out Ben, Adventures on Zero. Awesome content so far. Hopefully he finds his cameras. He did find out, I saw, they were not stolen.
Ooh.
He was very tired leaving a restaurant. He thinks he hooked them onto his bike, but not like strapped them down. In his backpack, maybe
they probably
somewhere.
fell. Oh, that means they're probably broken.
Yeah, maybe. Depends on how padded it was, if they're in cases or not.
We'll cross our fingers for you, Ben.
Yeah. Cardo, which is my choice of Bluetooth communicator, just keeps making more consumer-friendly moves, and I love it.
I didn't realize there was like a main rivalry with those. Granted, I didn't have any like idea of what the bigger picture of what that rider communication was even like, but apparently it's like Apple and Android.
Yeah, to some extent. So they both support Bluetooth.
So what's the other one called?
Senna.
Gotcha.
Senna's the other brand. Senna mainly is Bluetooth. Cardo does Bluetooth, but they also developed their own mesh system. DMC, I believe, is the acronym they use. It gives them a little longer range and they can connect more riders easily. And there's not this like, the pairing is much simpler when it all works.
So they have to be in Bluetooth range in order to communicate with your pals?
Senna's do.
Okay.
And a lot of the like kind of third party Cardos with their DMC have a little more range. But Cardo has made some software updates. Basically, it's going to make it a lot easier for Sennas to operate with Cardos. Just kind of keep it up. Love to see it. Make it easier for all of us to communicate on rides. Another reason to buy a Cardo, to support them doing awesome stuff like this, and hopefully get to that open communication channel, like a channel 19 on the CB radio setup, where we can just ride around and you'll hear some guy zip through an intersection singing a song at the top of his lungs on the open channel.
And everyone gets a code name.
Yes, we'll all have Cardo open channel handles.
Can't wait to figure out what mine's going to be.
Oh.
I don't think I get to choose my own, do I? Isn't that not how it works?
You can. It depends. It's better if someone else gives it to you.
Okay.
Carries a story that way.
Okay, I'll wait.
Ducati Desert X rally officially launched. So we've got some details. We've got better suspension, lighter wheels, dumping some weight on the wheels. It's more, essentially, just more everything, other than weight, less weight on the wheels. Cool. The price point's just up there. It's not a bike I'm personally going to be looking at. If you're into adventure riding, I love the look of them. I think they're really sweet. I'm just not spending $23,000 on a bike to take off-road and beat up.
Woof.
Yeah. But it is a Ducati, so you do get that. You can be a Ducatista.
Is that what they're called?
It's one of the names.
That's cute. Sounds like a barista.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add on that one before we move on?
Not really. The fact that, I mean, it sounds like a lot of money to spend on a bike, but in relative, people are spending more on less.
I mean,
and
it's less than a lot of Harley touring bikes.
Everyone drips their money into a hobby, so
yeah,
I get it. It is what it is, but I mean, dual sport bikes all look the same to
Adventure.
me.
It's not a dual sport.
Oh, what's the difference?
Oh boy.
You don't want to go over it?
No, so like a dual sport is more of a dirt bike.
Okay.
With street lighting on it.
Okay.
Right? An adventure bike is a proper like street motorcycle typically that has been converted to do more off-road riding.
I see. Right.
So the creature comforts and the design of the motorcycle are different. Whereas like a dirt bike is going to have like flat seat, very narrow.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
An adventure bike is not going to be like that.
I got it. You don't have to go
a lot of times fixed fairings as well. So the headlight doesn't move with the handlebars, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Hyosung has a 300cc V-twin cruiser. It's launched in France. We'll see if it makes it to the U.S. I don't even know if there's a Hyosung distributor in the U.S. anymore.
Never heard of them.
Yeah. I think the last dealer I knew in the area was that dealership we've been to down in North Canton, where we keep getting the same guy every time we go into it.
Royal.
Yeah. Didn't want to mention names.
Don't go there.
It's interesting. Small displacement V-twin is cool. It intrigues me at least. It looks like it's going to be a competitor to the QJ Motor SRV 300. It's kind of what I wish Harley had as like an entry-level bike. Like, give me a little Harley V-twin. That'd be a cool way to start.
A little BB Harley. What's the smallest CC on a Harley?
Right now, 975,
Jesus.
water-cooled. Yeah, Nightster's a lot more bike than probably a lot of people should start on.
They really don't want you to have fun. They're like all or nothing.
No, they've eliminated all their bikes under $10,000.
That's silly.
Yeah.
Status symbol.
Yeah, to some extent. But yeah, 300cc V-twin, 60-degree V, intriguing. It's making almost 30 horsepower. Rev's pretty high. 8,500 RPM is where it's making peak power. Very cruiser, in its look. Air filter sitting out the right side of the bike in the valley of the V, just like a Sportster would. Fairly relaxed rider triangle. Adjusted to US dollars, about a $5,500 bike. We'll see if it ever makes it to US shores.
Oh, aesthetics. Pretty attractive.
Yeah, I think it's a good looking bike.
Small.
There's certain things about the design I like better on the Hyosung compared to the QJ Motor SRV 300.
It does have what appears to be a little BB rider seat. What do you call that?
Pillion? Passenger?
Passenger seat. I don't know if it has peg. Oh, yeah, I think I see a peg.
If it doesn't, I'm sure they'll sell them to you. There's a lot of manufacturers doing that nowadays.
I think does it actually say bobber on the side?
I did not notice
Zoom
if
in.
it did.
Or it's bubbles.
It may say bobber.
Interesting.
It'd be funnier if it said bubbles.
I'd buy it if it said bubbles. Cute.
Yeah.
Cute.
Honda.
I'd buy it if it sounded like bubbles. Bloop, 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 bloop.
I'm sure with the right exhaust we could get there. Honda is just killing it on their patent game recently. If you remember, last week we talked about their moving body panels to alert the rider what they were doing. They're now working on a smart windshield.
Tell me more.
So specifically, they're looking at this for the Goldwing. It's going to use different sensors to automatically adjust the windshield height to minimize turbulence. And the kind of consensus is, we think the motivation behind this is Honda's working on a lot of like voice controlled features. They want to minimize wind noise in the kind of rider triangle area. Mm-hmm. So by letting the bike adjust the windshield height to kind of minimize the amount of air hitting the rider, also minimizes the amount of wind noise that those microphones would pick up. So that'll be interesting. I'm sure it'll make it a market eventually.
Seems kind of like catch-22 for these patents to be so public. Like,
yeah, but now they have a patent on it.
I guess, but it's like, how much can you stretch it to use their idea and come up with your own? Like,
yeah, I didn't look to see. I assume this is probably a utility patent and not a design patent. If it's a utility patent,
then
it's a little harder to get around.
Oh, so no one else can use like the concept of what they're doing.
There's always loopholes.
They don't have to iron out the mechanics then.
Yeah, a lot of utility patents you can't read through the patent and go like make a device, because they're very vague, because that's the intention. If you make it too specific, it's easier to circumvent the patent. So you want patents to be very wide. I'm sure people will find ways to get around it and make their own auto-adjusting windshields once this becomes popular. Interesting to see the likely motivation behind it. I just look at it and think, another thing to break.
Yeah, but if it broke, is it really any different than what you already have? I guess it depends on which position it breaks.
Sure. As long as they keep manual adjustability. I don't even have an electronically adjustable windshield on any of my bikes, so it doesn't really bother me specifically.
You don't even have a windshield on every bike.
No, most of them, though. But, Africa Twin, the Honda Africa Twin, if you don't know who makes the Africa Twin, they've got some updates coming from 2024. Technically announced for Europe. I'm sure they'll make it to the US. Hopefully next year. If not next year, the year after.
And this appears to be an adventure bike.
It is an adventure bike. Good job. Killing it tonight.
I studied.
The biggest thing I noticed, kind of reading through the changes, the Adventure Sports version of it. So they're offering electronically adjustable suspension, semi-active suspension from Showa on, I think, all of them, at least as an option. The Adventure Sport, it comes standard. Different wheels. It's going to be slightly more street-oriented. So if someone loved the idea of the Africa Twin but wanted to be realistic with themselves and realize they probably aren't doing as much dirt riding as they want to be, which I totally understand. We all buy for things we wish we were doing, not things we're actually doing. But the Adventure Sport's can be a little more street-oriented. The other thing is some refinements to the way the DCT transmission engages. Let me see if I can find that on here. Basically, they're changing the way it starts out to feel a little more natural, as if you were riding a bike with a clutch.
I don't know how to ride a bike with a clutch.
You've done it a little bit.
I think I went a solid 20 feet in the yard the one time.
Yeah. I can't seem to find where I read about the DCT now. But yeah, some updates to the bike. DCT being the most interesting of them to me.
Link will be in the show notes.
Yep.
Everyone could study with me.
Yep. This one, I don't know if you read. It is intriguing to me because it is kind of a nothing burger to some extent. Buell has announced that the Super Cruiser model has reached $120 million in pre-order. So this is interesting because the pre-order, like the reservation amount for this bike is $50.
Oh, wait a minute. The reservation amount? So you're going to do the math.
So, yeah. So here's the question. At $120 million, I highly doubt they mean that 2.4 million people have reserved this bike.
Heck no. They probably mean that there's like that much in potential sales based on the pre-orders.
And the potential sale price of this bike is between $20,000 and $30,000.
Whoa.
So here's the question. Do you think they looked at the number and wanted to inflate the dollar amount? Because they mentioned the dollar amount, not the number of pre-orders. So my thought is if you're pushing the dollar amount, you're going to act as if every person who has pre-ordered is going to spend the maximum possible on that bike. Would you follow that logic?
From a marketing perspective, yes, they would do that.
Yeah. So if we take $120 million and assume every person is spending $30,000 on their bike, that is 4,000 pre-orders.
And it says it won't even hit production until 2025.
Maybe.
It's like a Kickstarter.
Yeah. At this point, it's still vaporware. The Super Buell or the Super Cruiser that Buell has shown off was built in conjunction with Roland Sand Designs, and I love most of Roland's bikes that they put out, but I doubt, like most concept bikes, things are going to have to change by the time we get to actual production. The turn signals on the bike they've shown off, I don't know that I've ever figured out where the front ones are. The rear ones are small enough that I can't believe that they'd actually pass DOT like that. So it's not going to look exactly the same. I don't think everyone always thinks of that, kind of like the Cybertruck. Bunch of Cybertruck pre-orders. Probably a lot less people.
What happened to that?
Well, it's coming out soon.
Soon is so subjective.
Yeah. But the issue is Buell. I love Buell in the sense of what Eric Buell was doing.
Never heard of him.
So Eric Buell worked at Harley. He developed the FXR. He left. He started Buell Motorcycles, which was then purchased by Harley-Davidson, brought in-house. They kind of neutered Buell, only let them use the Sportster engines. He did a ton with it. Came out with different technology, different braking ideas that no one else was doing, fuel and frame ideas. Just really pushed the envelope on motorcycle design, not just from an artistic, but also an engineering standpoint. Buell of today does not involve Eric Buell, which is kind of weird to me.
Yeah, that's why you don't name a company after yourself. Can we just throw that out there?
Yeah. So that's a bummer. And they are putting bikes out the door, but not like high numbers. If this actually makes it to production, I'll be pretty excited. I just don't have a ton of confidence it's making it to production right now. 2025 might as well be 2035 at this point. Until the bike actually starts showing up.
It's technically, if you wanted to be optimistic, you'd say it's like barely a year. But I don't know. I don't know what like the production line of a bike looks like in order to be like, well, if you don't have anything, a year from launch, like it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. And I really don't think they went assuming everyone is spending only $20,000 on their bikes. But
no, they're not going to round down by any means if they want to flaunt some numbers.
But if you did, that puts it at 6,000 pre-orders, which isn't nothing, but is not earth-shattering in my mind.
What was the other number?
4,000. So between 4,000 and 6,000 pre-orders. Yeah. And unless we assume this is somehow actually $120 million at the $50 reservation amount, in which case they have 2.4 million pre-orders, which is impressive. I doubt it. And because they didn't stipulate that, they leave it open for interpretation.
Well, they probably don't expect anyone to actually sit down and do the math like we did either.
Well, maybe not. But I don't know. I hope it gets production. It's a cool looking bike. My hopes just aren't high right now.
Sure, what's one more bike?
Yeah. Marc Marquez is leaving Honda for Ducati. If you don't know who Marc Marquez is, you don't follow MotoGP likely, which is fine.
He drives fast.
Yep.
That's what I learned.
Rides motorcycles fast.
Yep, and he's got a lot of awards, and he's leaving his contract. What?
Mutually.
Yeah,
Yep.
That's a little interesting. He's got 1 year left or something on his 4-year contract?
I think he's lost confidence in Honda's ability to put a competitive bike on the track.
I wonder why they would let him go,
lost
though.
A little confidence in his ability to ride.
Oh.
Although he is one of the best in the sport still.
Yeah, that's what's weird is like, unless they're just doing that for like the publicity aspect of like, we don't want to lock him down.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think part of it is like, if you don't want to be here, we don't want you here either.
Yeah, that's
right?
nice.
And like they did a lot together. That was.
Did he only ever ride for them?
You're asking questions I don't have answers to. I don't know. I don't follow MotoGP
trying
that
to stay
closely.
Engaged here.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. He's been with them for quite a while. When someone says Marc Marquez, his name is pretty synonymous with Honda Racing. But he's going to Ducati. And more interestingly, he's not, from the sounds of it, going to the Ducati factory team. Nothing's been announced officially on the Ducati side, but there was some discussion. And it sounds like he's going to one of the satellite teams. So he's not going to the official like Ducati bikes. He's going to like a third-party Ducati bike. So he believes enough in the Ducati performance to not hold out for a factory ride, which is interesting.
Chase your dreams, people.
Yeah. Royal Enfield Himalayan 450 or 452, whatever we're calling it nowadays, was spied on an Indian highway doing a little over 85 miles an hour pulling away from a car.
Do you think they have speed limits on Indian highways?
I don't know, but the car showed their speedometer. They were doing 140 kilometers an hour, which was about 85, and the bike was pulling away from them.
Rascal.
Which is cool. That we already kind of knew where the power level was, but the idea of a Himalayan that's going to do better than 85 and not feel like it's dying is pretty slick.
This guy going 85 is like, hold on, let me get a picture.
Yeah, well, it's quite a funny video. He's driving and looking out the window and then out the windshield and down at a speedometer and back up at the bike, and they're weaving around other motorcycles that are on the road, which is a little sketch.
They're probably good at it though.
Yeah, but more photos and videos of the new Himalayan, more in kind of real world actualization of the numbers we've seen. The one that interested me more is some spy shots showed up of what appears to be a 650 Royal Enfield 650 twin-based scrambler. What interests me less is they believe the name that it's going with may be Interceptor Bear 650 or just the Bear 650. It doesn't get me that excited. Then you've got the whole like gay bear tie-in, like I don't know. We'll see what happens with it. But excited to see an off-road oriented 650. Hopefully, at this point, I feel like anytime we see a spy shot of a Royal Enfield, especially coming out of India, which is where most of the leaks occur because they're, headquartered in India. If we see a spy shot of that bike, it so far is almost, I can't think of a situation where it didn't end up in production. Sometimes it was a little delayed, but it gets there.
Well, if you're seeing a spy shot, they've made at least one.
Yeah. Yep. And you kind of got to start there if you're going to make a bunch, right?
Right.
Their export numbers way down.
Ruh-roh.
Like 50% down almost.
Where are they based?
India. So it almost 50% down, 48.89%. It's a decent chunk of drop off, especially for the export markets. I wish they broke down the export markets. I'd be intrigued to see how much of that is specifically the US. But yeah. I think if they bring out more larger displacement bikes, that's what most of the American market wants.
Or sometimes, I feel like these numbers may be skewed for a while. Like you were mentioning with work, you've been looking at numbers, and it's like, okay, sure, we're down from last year, but was last year a fluke? Like, are you comparing this to a solid average, or were they catching up from COVID or whatever? Yeah,
which could be valid, them catching up on shipments. Harley, we've got the X350 and X500 coming to Japan. Two of the many global models. There's smaller displacement. These ones specifically are from QJ Motor. Kind of similar to their Benelli models in some ways. That right now it looks like we are never going to see these in the U.S.
I was going to say, because didn't you just say that the smallest Harley was like 900 cc's?
975, yeah.
And now here's little BBs.
Oh, they have them. They've got remember the 440 trademark issue they're having in India?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've got all these small displacement bikes. They don't want to bring them to the U.S. because they're not made in the U.S. And they're worried people are going to freak out about it, I guess.
Oh, you saying like the average Harley rider is like super patriotic type deal?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways. But I think that's why they're afraid to bring them to the U.S.
Maybe they could just like come up with a naming convention or just really own up to it. You know, it's like the branding of it could speak wonders if you're just like, hey, like we understand these aren't all made in the U.S., but like we're not hiding that from you either.
Well, I think part of this lies in the change in philosophy that's occurred at Harley in the past few years. So I did a bit of a deep dive because I followed it as it all went down. But now sitting here in retrospect, looking back on what's occurred at Harley-Davidson since, let's call it kind of 2018-ish, a little before that. A post on Reddit kind of got me fired up.
As Reddit does.
Yeah. As the internet does.
Oh my God, Reddit is just
well.
the worst. It's like where people go to get angry and to make others angry. I don't even go on there anymore because just bad vibes.
So, if you're not aware, the current CEO of Harley-Davidson is Jochen Zeitz. He was formerly, I don't know, C-suite executive level at Puma. And I didn't understand the whole story as to how he got to Harley-Davidson.
Yeah, that's a bit of a different industry.
Yeah. So he sat on the board, but this is where the rabbit hole got deep. So I want to start with Matt Levatich or Levatich. I don't know the correct pronunciation of his last name. He was the CEO before Jochen. He was a Harley faithful. He'd been at the company 20-some years, was the COO, and I believe president for a while before he became or maybe he was on the board and was COO before becoming CEO. He got me, and I'm sure a lot of other people, excited about where Harley could go. He'd been with Harley, rode Harleys. He was a rider.
He was a dreamer.
Like, discussed riding motorcycles and, like, would talk to people about his bike because he loved his bike. Like, we all love our bikes, right?
I wonder what percentage of employees at Harley-Davidson don't ride?
A non-zero number, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. Be interesting to see how high it is. Yeah. But he brought out the strategy that was known as More Roads to Harley-Davidson. And as part of More Roads to Harley-Davidson, promised a few different things. The most meaningful to us as consumers was a bunch of new models. From the realm of, I think at one point it was like 100 new models. Yeah, 100 new high-impact Harley-Davidson motorcycles over 10 years was the goal. This was announced in 2017. This strategy was designed to go from 2017 to 2027. They wanted to expand the total Harley-Davidson riders to 4 million in the U.S. One of their other goals was to grow international business to 50% of the annual Harley-Davidson Motor Company revenue. Of course, deliver good returns to their investors. But yeah, the important one to us as consumers, 100 new high-impact Harley-Davidson motorcycles. Now, in the Harley world, defining a model sometimes is a little muddy. Sometimes they'll slap new paint and some accessories on a bike and
call it something new.
We've got a new model. But for the most part, it seemed he really meant new models. They wanted to get into stuff like electric bicycles, which they did, electric motorcycles. They had started working on the Livewire. He saw the Livewire come to fruition. They had started working on and announced a few specific models they were going to bring out right before the pandemic and everything got weird. And that was the Pan America, which we've seen now.
Mm-hmm.
The Bronx, which has been killed. Or at least, as far as we know, been killed. A bike at the time that was not named yet, which ended up being the Sportster S. If you haven't seen a Sportster S, you should look that up.
Okay, put it in Google.
It's an interesting looking bike. It's got a 1250 water-cooled V-twin, which similar to the engine in the Pan America. Radical departure for Harley-Davidson from their kind of mainline stuff. As far as traditionally, Harleys have been pushrod V-twins, air/oil cooled, with the exception of the Project Rushmore bikes that had water cooled heads. Outside of that, they haven't really done liquid cooled bikes other than oil cooling if we want to split hairs into liquid cooling.
It's a chunky bike.
Yeah, so they called that...
That's a thick boy.
Yeah, it is. That was the unnamed, I believe, custom, somehow, I forget what they called it, something custom. And it ended up being the Sportster S. So, not only had they named the Bronx and the Pan America, and they showed them to the public, we saw them at IMS, at the IX Center.
Mm-hmm.
They showed off the Bronx. They showed off the Pan America. We got the Pan America. We didn't get the Bronx because of some things that occurred. So, at the beginning of 2020, there was a fight among the investors and the board of directors. And I knew there was some, like, I don't know, weird turmoil that occurred, and that's why Matt Levitich left. But I didn't understand all the details of it. So, doing some digging, I found out this company existed that kind of started it. That company was Impala Management. Let me see if I can find it.
Did you say that they aren't making the Sportster S anymore? Because it's on their website.
No, they're making the Sportster S. The one we didn't get was the Bronx.
It's like the S is like a fat tire bike.
Yeah, much more kind of street tracker. Impala Asset Management. So Impala Asset Management owned roughly 2% of the Harley-Davidson stock. They didn't like the direction that Levitich's plan was going, apparently, they kind of started the effort to try and remove him. And eventually, he resigned. Jochen Zeitz gets installed. And he eventually kills the More Roads to Harley-Davidson plan and replaces it with a strategy called Rewire, which we'll come back to in a second. The thing that I found interesting was Impala has since sold their Harley stock, or at least reduced it significantly. They've also ceased being a hedge fund.
You're right.
Yeah. I'm hoping you'll fill in here while I try and take a drink of water here or something.
Fill in on hedge funds.
Yeah, something.
I know. It's really hard for me to keep up with some of this technical stuff. I was trying to go through and read these articles, and they're so long. I mean, my attention span.
I did a deep dive.
Which is how many hours for you?
I don't know. This was probably only a couple hours.
Only. Oh yeah. My God. My attention span's like 3 minutes. If I can't find it, I'm gone.
So they sell the Harley stock, which or most of it, maybe not all of it, they convert from a hedge fund to a family office, which basically means they're not taking outside money anymore. They're just investing their own money because they've seen such big returns. They've outpaced the market average return. And they're like, we don't need your money. We have all of our money. And we're making money hand over fist. So Impala causes the removal of Matt. We end up with Jochen Zeitz, which I don't necessarily have anything specifically against other than I don't love some of his strategy calls.
I didn't realize that was 2 names. I thought that was his last name.
Jochen?
I thought Jochen Zeitz was like his last name and you were just referring him to that.
No. First name Jochen, last name Zeitz. So, and now Impala's kind of walked away. They don't really care what's happened. They made their money. Because what Jochen did with Rewire was basically kill most of the stuff that they had been working on. It was very much a trim the fat and let's return a profit.
I bet there was layoffs.
Probably. I don't remember.
They're always hiring, though. It'd be interesting to see what their workflow looks like. Yeah.
So let me get to this part. There's not nearly enough prepped with my stuff.
Just don't expect me to fill in.
Yeah. So under More Roads is when they'd started working on a lot of these kind of Asian market bikes, like the Harley 338 that's kind of based on the Benelli TNT 300. And when Zeitz brought in his Rewire plan, he's like, we're cutting most of these new models. We're going back to our core kind of strengths and focusing on Harley legacy models, or just kind of what their legacy was. The Bronx was removed from the website. The Pan America was kind of basically virtually launched at this point. It wasn't yet, but couldn't get much closer. At first, I think they delayed the Bronx to like 21 and then just disappeared. And at first, if you look at their stock price, this all seemed to work. They then switched from, he went from what Jochen called the Rewire plan to Hardwire, which was a 5-year strategic plan. This was announced in early 21. The key highlights Harley mentioned in their press release was target increased profitability and low double-digit EPS growth through 2025. Broad view of its customers, inclusive of non-riders, yada yada. Invest in core segments of touring, large cruiser, and trike to strengthen and grow its position. expanded into venture touring, which was nice to see that they were going to put some weight behind Pan America still. They launched a Harley-Davidson certified program for pre-owned bikes, which is cool in some ways. And then extend employee ownership to all employees by offering an equity grant to approximately 4,500 employees. But my issue with this is we've walked back all of the new model development, essentially. We had plenty of Harley touring bikes. We had plenty of large cruisers and trikes. And Harley for years has had this problem where their demographic keeps getting older. Their main customer.
It's like that convention or whatever, that gathering in Pennsylvania. That's what they said too.
Yeah. I mean,
there's commonalities here.
Yeah. And they used to disclose the average or like median age of the Harley like buyer, and they stopped because it kept going up.
I just don't think millennials are as loyal.
Well, but also look at the price of their bikes.
Yeah, we ain't got no money. We're still paying on our school loans.
Yeah. And at some point, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, because the word boomers has kind of taken on that context in some ways, but boomers only have so many bikes left they're going to buy. And how many, $30,000-ish Harleys do you think they're going to buy? The other thing that they've done is since the pandemic, they've discussed how they've realized that if they keep production numbers lower, that means they can sell the bikes for more. But
I guess you got to choose between making more on less bikes or making less on more bikes. And these boomers are what, like 60 years old now, at least, probably 65.
Oh, I don't even know. Average age of a baby boomer is probably above 65 now.
But what is it? What's after that? X?
Yeah, Generation X. But the problem is whenever we're looking at motorcycles, especially, I think the bulk of the kind of people I am around in the motorcycle world, I don't know anyone who's going and buying a new Harley. At least not a lot of people.
Not in our circle.
Yeah. So when you go and you say, we're going to reinvest in our large cruisers and our what they now call Grand American touring bikes, and you kill all these new models that were on the horizon, like the Bronx. The Bronx was going to be a 975cc liquid-cooled V-twin street fighter. Like, think sport bike.
Okay.
Technically like a naked bike. Harley hasn't had a sport bike since when they owned Buell. There's going to be a whole new segment for them. And now we're just looking at a Harley-Davidson that the groundbreaking changes that they've brought out recently is the CVO models have variable valve timing and different LED lights and cost a bunch of money. And there's nothing I look at in their lineup and go, that's a bike I confidently feel like I want to spend that amount of money on.
Yeah, especially if you want multiple bikes. If you're still kind of like testing the waters, you're not going to buy a new one. You're going to buy a couple, you're going to hoard a couple used ones from the boomers that are getting too old.
Yeah. I mean, if you go on their website, their cheapest new bike at this point is the Nightster. And I think the Nightster is like a the Nightster starts at $13,500.
I think a lot of companies, I mean, even vehicles to an extent, are all going to just have to start reconsidering their price points. Like, maybe they can get away with it for a little while, but like I said, I feel like that expendable income with the cost of living going up, like it's just not there anymore right now for like maybe who their ideal market would be.
Yeah. I think we're to that point. I say that because we've now gotten to a point that we've gone through Yakin's Rewire and now Hardwire strategy.
So many wires in the naming conventions, too. I wonder if that was strategic.
Well, weird timing, because he's also the one who spun Livewire off into its own company.
Yeah, that seems weird. I didn't realize there was other wires happening. And then he's like, let's vote this one off the island. It's like, why would you not at least rename it before you did that?
So you have a CEO you brought in who formerly worked for Puma. From what I've been able to find, was not like an avid motorcyclist before this. He's been photographed on motorcycles a few times now, but didn't seem to be like an avid motorcyclist before coming into Harley. From a cursory inspection of the rest of the industry, is like Harley is one of the only companies that does not have like the same nationality CEO as the company is.
Yeah.
I think is the best way to say it. Like Kawasaki's CEO is Japanese. The company's
Which makes
Japanese,
sense.
right?
I mean, it's good to know your cultural like home base.
Yeah. And I, again, like, there's nothing against someone from Germany working in the U.S. Totally fine.
No, but I imagine there is a cultural difference.
Yeah, especially when you're the head of one of the largest, oldest American brands, specifically within motorcycling.
Seems a little
global brand recognition.
Yeah, it seems a little counterculture there for them to be like, we don't want to import other bikes because it's from other countries, but our CEO can be from another country.
Yes. So, and he was, I don't remember the exact quotes he used, but part of the reason he spun off Livewire was he was like, they need to be able to focus on developing this bike by themselves. But the kind of subtext was, we don't want people to think Harley-Davidson's making electric motorcycles. Right? Because that's a bad look to our core group of buyers who remember when everything ran on leaded gasoline.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess he's got his target market figured out, and it's all these boomers aging out, though. I mean, like, it seems like they've kind of stunted their growth.
Well, and we are now to a point in this arc that Harley-Davidson stock is currently worth less than right like before Matt Levitich stepped down. So if Impala was still around, they would be complaining about the leadership of the company, or at least should be, if everything's the same. Because the stock price is going down, and we need to pivot the company. The problem is the pivot was the pivot that occurred back in 2017, is where I think they should have stayed and brought more models to market and offered more segments for buyers and more price points for buyers. And I'd love to see a Harley-Davidson under $10,000 again.
Yeah. And I'm sure like no one could have predicted for our general recession or whatever is happening now too. Like this could have been a completely different discussion had the last 3 years not happened.
Yeah. The most interesting recent development in this story is Yakin has stepped down as CEO of Livewire. Who they hired, let me get his name right. Karim Danez came from BRP, specifically their Marine division, from everything I could find. And he was there since 2015. So BRP Bombardier Recreational Products, I believe.
Good job.
Yeah, like Sea-Doo. Interesting to me, because if all he ever was in was the Marine division, that's kind of weird. Mm-hmm. Come from boats to motorcycles.
A little different.
The one intriguing thing, though, is BRP is who acquired the IP from Alta Motors, which was kind of the first, would appear to be one of the first successful electric motorcycle attempts. I'm still working on how I'm going to structure this, the history of electric motorcycles till now episode. probably a few episodes away from getting there.
Need like a timeline.
Yeah. Alta fits into that because they were one of the people that, if they could have pulled it off, would be leaders in the space right now. They just didn't have enough runway, I don't think. But all that to be said, I'll be surprised if there's not a leadership change at Harley soon.
There is everywhere else, so who knows?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's something that would... Well, all that stuff gets out pretty quick. We would know.
Yeah.
Who can vote a CEO out? A board?
Yeah.
Every company has a board. And
every publicly traded company at least. Some private companies. So we'll see if Yakin's days are numbered. I'll put a bunch of these reference articles in the show notes if you want to read more about it. There's one good one that was basically the timeline of the CEOs. But
I wonder what that other guy's doing now.
I couldn't find anything about Matt.
Did you check LinkedIn?
I did. He has been on the board at Emerson forever, basically. It seems like he's still there.
Good for him.
And he was working for Aaron's, like ARIENS or EINS, like they do snow blowers, I know. I don't know what else they do. He's working with them in some capacity. But yeah, I hope the best for Harley. The one article I read was interesting because they speculated that the Nightster is kind of very telling of what occurred during that transition. Because that was a bike that was probably slated like somewhere in its production cycle before Yakin stepped in, but not far enough for it to be close to a finished product since it just came out recently. The left side of that bike up close, it isn't great. There's a lot of...
I like that you're just like, yeah, they were really good about the right side, but the left side they just gave up on.
Yeah, the left side, I don't know, it's just got a lot going on. And it just seems like it, in some ways, may have been a half-baked delivery of that bike. Because it was just like, spend as little money as possible to get this thing out the door.
Yeah.
And it's just extra bad to me because it's also now their entry-level bike.
They're like,
in the U.S. market.
It's not that great. Let's just put it on the bottom.
Yeah. So, I'll say in the course of research for this, I did look into what a used Pan America is running nowadays.
Just research, though, right?
I did also find some really good deals on Himalayans.
Just research,
One
right?
of them I may actually reach out to and see what they'd give me on trade for the Vulcan.
Woof, that's serious.
Yeah. I really like the white paint on those, and they're not making them anymore. And I found one that's still pretty low mileage. It's a pretty reasonable price.
Would they want to trade, though?
Well, I mean, depends on if the dealership's...
Oh, it's a dealership. Okay.
Yeah, it's at a dealership.
I see.
But the Pan America is interesting because the bike's been out for 3-ish years.
Mm-hmm.
There are used ones now for almost half the price, which in some ways is decent retention of value. In other ways, it's a little different when it's a Harley-Davidson. Because if you told me, let's say my Vulcan, that bike new was like $6,000 and some change. If it dropped 50% of its value, not great, but it's worth $3,000-ish.
Yeah, but you lose what, $3,000 as compared to a Harley 50% value
is almost $10,000.
Yeah,
because you can pick up a Pan America 1250 special for like 13-ish now.
That seems a little bit steep of depreciation because if you were to go buy a new car, something that's almost semi-comparable, at least in commitment, I would expect it to lose 30%, but not 50%.
Yeah, I mean, they used to always say that the moment you drove a car off a lot, it lost half its value. It's not exactly true, and it hasn't been true the past few years. Some of them gained value when you drove them off the lot. But the more I look at the Pan America, the more I am intrigued by that bike. And the more I look at that and am intrigued by it, the more I wonder what they had in the pipelines that was killed.
Yeah.
What would have been in those 100 models? That's
a lot of bikes. That's 10 models of 10 different types. It's
split hairs, right? With Harley-Davidson, they probably would have counted the Pan America 1250 and the Pan America 1250 Special as 2 different bikes, right? 2 models. But still, promising 100 models meant we would have seen some legitimate new designs. And I don't see them really innovating right now.
No.
I think they're just going to coast on what they had done. They seem to have kind of reversed course already a bit on the Rev Max, because we're not going to see the Bronx. At least it doesn't look like it. They don't seem to have a ton of aftermarket support yet. I don't see them really leaning hard into like the Nightster or the Sportster S. Most of what I see them pushing is the lowriders, which are good looking bikes. I like the look of the lowrider ST.
But if your demographic is changing, you can't just coast. It won't end well.
Yeah. And the lowriders, while there's been some arguably technological advancements on like their frame design and stuff, at the end of the day, the Milwaukee 8 is still an air-cooled pushrod V-twin, which is what they've been doing forever. And in some ways, that is good. But it only really seems good if you're doing new stuff as well. And they just don't seem to be doing enough new stuff to me.
Especially when like you can buy things used for half price. Like, who's going to keep buying new? I mean, there's always a few people, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, our thoughts and opinions will have very little influence on what actually happens.
Yeah.
Just sit back and watch the show.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. That's what I've got for this week. We'll see if Yakin is still CEO by next episode.
That would be weird if he wasn't.
Yep.
That'd be creepy.
It would. Next episode is also episode 8.
That was our first milestone.
Yep, that's our first milestone we set for ourselves.
It will not be on the 8th.
Something good. No.
Because it's only the 5th.
We do have some new stickers.
It's true. I don't want to put too much weight into the possibility of them showing up tomorrow because our vendor was very slow on their last delivery. But this weekend, hopefully, we will have 4 new stickers in our shop. I will make it a priority, a personal commitment to try to make sure we've got some sort of images to throw up on Instagram. There's some goodies coming, a collaboration that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
We actually got inspired. I don't know. That was pretty much Nokomoto's idea for one of them. So we're going to have to tag them and send them a few. Some unique styles. And ones that aren't just relevant to only people who ride motorcycles. So we want to keep it broad out there. Buy one for you and one for them.
Yep. So those will be available to purchase when?
As soon as the delivery man drops them off. So they're supposed to show up tomorrow.
Okay.
But
when are we going to have the listings up, though?
Soon.
Just like the Buells.
I mean, I guess I could put them up.
Cybertruck soon. We'll put them up for pre-order. You can pre-order for 50 cents.
I should have done that. Pre-orders would have been great. But you know what? I really like people to be able to get stuff soon, quickly. As soon as they see it. I don't like to tease too long because I think the anticipation dies off.
You should tell that to Tesla and Buell.
Oh my goodness. They're brave souls. They've got much stronger fans than I think we do at this point.
Yeah. Well, see you guys next week.
Bye.